my entire life! My God. I mean, when you drop the ball making a melodramatic story about a guy losing his arm, losing his daughter, and his entire life falling apart around him, you could not fail any more than this. I should give some context to this one. You'll recall that back in January, I reviewed JLA Cry for Justice. Spoiler alert, it sucks. It's a nonsensical story about heroes deciding to be proactive in the fight against evil, to act instead of react, to do whatever it takes to stop evil, and then proceeds to do nothing but react to crimes as they happen, stumble around like they're all sniffing paint, and torture people without it ever once having the heroes admit that what they did was wrong. However, the character most damaged by Cry for Justice was Roy Harper, aka Arsenal and Green Arrow's former sidekick. He not only got his arm cut off, but his young daughter Leanne was killed too. And in case you're wondering, yes, I am still pissed off about it. However, Cry for Justice was not the end of it. Let's imagine you're DC Comics. You have a critically panned miniseries, that sold decent numbers by the end admittedly. Everyone is reeling in anger and frustration about this whole affair. You haven't seen this kind of hate since Amazon's Attack or Countdown by your public. Well, how about we not only have follow-up tie-in books, but also 2 miniseries in a desperate attempt to save this fiasco and make it seem like there was a plan all along to restabilize the Green Arrow characters, which you already messed up because of your confusingly moronic decision to marry Green Arrow and Black Canary, despite nobody really being on board with it, and the book that followed up on it was almost as badly received as Cry for Justice. It's like if the Green Arrow books were a boat that had sprung a leak. Instead of trying to fix the hole, they decide to plug it up with garbage and then assume that the problem is solved. What came out of Cry for Justice were the 2 miniseries Fall of Green Arrow and Rise of Arsenal. I get a lot of mixed reaction to Fall of Green Arrow, some saying it was actually a decent and enjoyable miniseries, while others saying it's just as bad as its counterpart. And oh boy howdy, Rise of Arsenal is bad. But man oh man, is it a really enjoyable bad. Let's dig into Rise of Arsenal number 1 and number 2. We're reading from the trade here, so no cover analysis. I should point out the writer for this, J.T. Krull. Krull is a really damn good writer and deserves a lot more assignments than he tends to get. He was the writer on Titans before someone decided to make it about Deathstroke instead of, you know, the Titans, and later became the writer of Teen Titans. Although that run is getting cut short for the DC Universe relaunch in September, which, by the way, I'll be reading all the new books coming out of that and giving recommendations. So yeah, Rise of Arsenal is probably the black mark on his resume. We open to a heart-wrenching scene, only heart-wrenching in retrospect of course, of Roy talking to Leanne over the JLA communications system. As the call ends, Prometheus, disguised as Captain Marvel, comes up behind Roy and smashes his face into the computer monitor. Yeah, we're about to see what actually went down in Cry for Justice and how Roy lost his arm. It's actually a really damn good scene. Except it further highlights how completely inept Cry for Justice is. First of all, for being a super genius, Prometheus' first plan on how to take down Roy is to shove him into a monitor. He doesn't have knockout darts or some kind of poison he can shove into his exposed neck. For that matter, why does he even need to attack him? According to Prometheus in Cry for Justice, he was uploading his takeover system wirelessly, so attacking him makes absolutely no sense. Arsenal gets up and realizes it's not Captain Marvel. Prometheus tries to pretend that he's being controlled, but Arsenal says he felt a gloved hand on him, which apparently Master Super Awesome Prometheus couldn't hide behind his disguise. Prometheus sends out glowing CDs of death out of a wrist launcher at him, but Roy dodges them. Roy points out how stupid it is for Prometheus to be here when he's surrounded by heroes, but Prometheus just summons an energy guitar and slices his bow. But here's again why this scene is so good, but also so dumb when put in context with Cry for Justice. Roy Harper's been fighting villains since he was a little kid. He's a sidekick who grew into his own and can kick major ass. And he does so, punching Prometheus to the ground using basic martial arts. Now, I know we've all tried to block it out of our memories. I know I certainly have. But let's try to remember Cry for Justice for a moment, shall we? Roy Harper, with no superpowers whatsoever, has taken down Prometheus in a fight that lasted 6 pages. In Cry for Justice, Prometheus single-handedly defeated over a dozen superheroes, each takedown occurring in one friggin' panel each. Many of those heroes have enhanced strength or abilities, but no! The Mega Super Awesome Prometheus is untouchable! How could anyone lay a single punch on him? Oops, wait, there goes Arsenal doing so. This is how you pull off a fight scene. You show the hero as competent and skilled. The only reason, as we're about to see, that Prometheus wins this is because he cheats. The glowing CDs are powered by magnets or something. Who knows, advanced tech, suspension of disbelief. And he summons them out of the wall they're embedded in, and they manage to slice into Arsenal. Prometheus then gets his second wind and cuts off Roy's arm. And then the dumbest thing ever happens to further cement how moronic Cry for Justice is, and in particular how crappy a villain Prometheus is. He's letting Arsenal walk away! What is wrong with you, you complete dumbass? I don't care how much he's bleeding and dying. How easy is it for him to get away and warn them? For all his talk about how much of a better villain he is, Prometheus is the same kind of villain, but with some new tricks. Overconfident, likes to monologue, makes grandiose assumptions that nothing can stop him. He's a Bond villain in a silly hat. Anyway, we cut to present time, where Roy is in Star Labs under treatment. He's in shock, obviously, but they slowly calm him down enough for him to realize what's happened to his arm. Green Lantern explains about what happened with Prometheus attacking several cities. Tell me you got him! Nah, we just let him go when he said he'd stop the destruction. Pinky swear, of course. But hey, it's no big deal! Double high five, man! Oh, right. Roy knows there's something they're not telling him, and I know this bit is supposed to be dramatic, but frankly, all I can notice is that with the angle this was drawn from, Black Canary's chest is getting shoved out, and her expression is like a confused Barbie doll tilting their head and going, duh. But yeah, when he asks about Leanne and everyone is silent, he realizes what's happened and goes nuts. It's once again a well-handled scene and completely understandable. Everyone's trying to explain to him, but of course you can't expect a guy who's just lost his daughter to behave rationally. One good thing I'll say about the art is that it's not just Roy that's crying. You can see subtle touches of tears from the others about the whole thing. Roy finally collapses, though once again the drama is kind of lessened because there's a tube hanging from his nose. Later, the others are talking about the whole thing. I should note that the Batman we see here is actually Dick Grayson, who took over as Batman after Bruce Wayne supposedly perished after the events of Final Crisis. And then he came back in the Return of Bruce Wayne miniseries. So, when can we expect to see the Return of Leanne miniseries, where it turns out that she's just been traveling through time, eh, DC? I'm waiting! Donna Troy asks Dr. Midnight, one of the premier physicians and superheroes of the DC Universe, about why his arm isn't healing properly. I'm going to assume she doesn't mean his arm growing back. because I may have to facepalm if that is what she meant. He explains that whatever Prometheus used to cut off his arm infected it with some kind of flesh-eating bacteria that is also made of nanites. I love how it contradicts itself in the same sentence. It is either nanites or bacteria. Or if you meant the nanites are causing the rapid onset of the bacteria, that'd be fine, but that's not what you said, Doctor. It infected him with some kind of nanomite, a flesh-eating bacteria. Cyborg is also working to get a new robotic hand ready for him, which unfortunately is one of those things about superhero comics we have to tilt our heads at. The DC Universe has a lot of advanced technology on hand. Are robotic prosthetics more common in that universe, or do only superheroes get them? Anyway, Green Arrow walks off, no doubt for his date with Prometheus, where he sticks an arrow in his face. Remind me again how he gained access to Prometheus's other dimension? Now it's time for Hallucination Theater. See, another thing about Roy Harper's backstory is that he's a former drug addict. Long story there, but now he's apparently dreaming that his old dead drug dealer, who's apparently dressed like he was on a tour of the Amazon basin, is encouraging him to start shooting up again since, well, his life is in the toilet anyway. Roy wakes up and goes to talk to Dr. Midnight, making me wonder how the hell he got out of bed, since it's not like people can just pull out IVs and whatnot. The good news is that they've isolated the nanites, but they've already done damage to the nerve endings, which means a cybernetic arm will be problematic. Which means we'll probably end up in a situation like this.
Hand, pick up the ball.
Roy wants to see Leanne's body, and Midnight tells him that she's in the morgue. I can take you down. Maybe we should call Dinah, have her join us. No offense, Doc, but I'm not looking for an audience. I just need to see my girl. Oh yeah, we have an emotionally and physically exhausted man who just lost his daughter and his arm. I can't possibly imagine anything going wrong with letting him go alone to see his daughter's corpse. Just to really add that emotional punch to this already horrific act committed by DC by killing her, Roy imagines what it must have been like for her and showing her crying and struggling. In the interest of good taste, I will not be showing those images. Seriously, DC, if this isn't undone in your stupid-ass relaunch, my respect for the creative skills of your company will fall even further than they already did with the act. Later, Roy steals some painkillers and heads down to the wreckage of Star City, and yeah, it's still bad. He goes back to his old place and finds some guys trying to loot the house, beats them up, and Black Canary arrives. They have no clue what's already been taken from me. I know, Roy, I know. No, you don't! You can't have kids, so how could you know what it's like to lose your own flesh and blood? Oh boy, Roy, was that the stupidest thing you could say. I have turned off the continuity alarm, because man, oh man, that's a continuity cluster crap on its own. Here's the thing. Yes, in Black Canary's history, at one point she was injured so she couldn't have kids. Now, I don't know the details myself, but I've been informed by those who do know that due to some events or something, her ability to have children has been restored. But the bigger issue is that Black Canary does have a daughter. Adopted, yes, but in the lead up to that idiotic marriage I mentioned earlier, oh yeah, that was also connected to Countdown. It's amazing how almost every single awful comic in the last 10 years can be linked together to form a chain of suckage. She had to give up her daughter and lose her. Now, admittedly, Roy just went through a horrific tragedy and he's not thinking straight. But oh boy, he never apologizes for this or any of the horrible things he's going to say and do. So yeah, the reader's patience with this crap is already starting to nosedive. Long story short, he says he wants to be left alone and Black Canary respects his privacy. Issue 1 ends with him beating up a punching bag before taking some painkillers, even though earlier in the issue he said the painkillers weren't stopping the pain in his arm. However, the bigger issue is that, in taking the pills, Ghost Drug Dealer returns! Welcome back, buddy! Welcome back to the glory of drugs! Worship at the altar of Snowflame!